Let us discuss about two more joint diseases, namely osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Beginning with osteoarthritis, although the terminology ends with itis, suggesting inflammation, the disease is more of a degenerative disease, not an inflammatory one, and it is characterized by destruction of articular cartilage, leading to deficits in structural and functional aspects of the joint. Osteoarthritis can be classified into two types, namely primary and secondary osteoarthritis. Primary osteoarthritis is basically because of various genetic and environmental factors which are not very well known, and most of the times a few joints only are involved. That is why it is called an oligoarticular disease. There is a generalized form of primary osteoarthritis, however, it is rare. Coming to secondary osteoarthritis, it is the type which occurs on an injured joint because of various reasons. It could either be a previous injury or a joint deformity or diseases such as diabetes mellitus in which there is joint destruction, etc. Here in secondary osteoarthritis, the population that is affected is generally younger, and the joints that are commonly affected are hips in males and knees and hands in females. In articular cartilage, there are some cells known as chondrocytes, which are nothing but cells of the cartilage. So, in osteoarthritis, because of mechanical factors and genetic factors, there is injury of these chondrocytes. Whenever some of these chondrocytes are injured, rest of the chondrocytes there will proliferate, or there is another term used called cloned. When these chondrocytes they start proliferating or cloning, they produce various factors. Some of those factors include interleukin 8, bone morphogenic protein. So these cause more proliferation of chondrocytes. Then they also produce proteoglycans. So proteoglycans help rebuild the cartilage which is destroyed, whereas there is something known as TGF beta which later on gives matrix metalloproteinase. Then there is aggrecanase, there is prostaglandin, tumor necrosis factor, nitric oxide, and chronic inflammatory cells, namely lymphocytes. These cause destruction of the chondrocytes. So whenever proteoglycans production and rest of the factors which destroy the cartilage are maintained in a balance, the disease won't progress. Whereas if degradation exceeds production, then the disease will set in. Here is the graphical representation of the pathogenesis. Initially, due to genetic factors and biomechanical stress, the chondrocytes are injured and hence they start proliferating. That's what you see in the top image. In the next image, we see that chondrocytes keep on proliferating by producing interleukin 8 and bone morphogenic protein. Then from the synovial lining, TGF beta is released, which cause the chondrocytes to produce matrix metalloproteinases which degrade the collagen, and aggrecanases which degrade the proteoglycans. Some other factors like prostaglandin E2, nitric oxide, and TNF are also secreted. In the bottommost image, we see that the articular cartilage has thinned out and portions of it have completely eroded off. There is decrease in the number of chondrocytes as well. Clinically, primary osteoarthritis is seen in an older age group. However, most of the cases of osteoarthritis will be seen by 50 years of age, and there is a female predilection. Common sites include hip, hand, knee, and interphalangeal joints. Symptoms include painful movements around the joint affected. There is morning stiffness, cracking sounds, also called crepitus, and less commonly, there could be involvement of a nerve leading to some neurological deficit along with pain. Morphologically, there is lysis of collagen type 2 fibers that are present in the articular cartilage. This leads to fissures and clefts in the cartilage. If full thickness of cartilage is eroded off, then what happens is the underlying bone is exposed. That is called subchondral bone. That is bone that is present below the cartilage. Also, the cartilage which is peeled off, it will acquire a round shape, and then those are called joint mice or loose bodies. The subchondral bone which is exposed off due to friction in the joint, what happens is it changes its color to resemble something like ivory, which is called eburnation of the bone. There could be multiple small fractures along the exposed bone, and synovial fluid may force itself into these fractures, leading to the formation of what is known as subchondral cyst. Multiple cysts can be there. Finally, the end points of the articular cartilage, there can be bony outgrowths at those places. These are what are known as osteophytes. These are all some of the morphological features that you can see in osteoarthritis. In the left uppermost picture of histology, you can see some cracks in the articular cartilage. So those are what are fissures. In the right upper image, there is an arrow pointing to what looks like a raw surface in the image. This is basically an arthroscopic image of knee joint. So that raw area what you see there, that is the exposed subchondral bone. That is the bone that is present below the cartilage is revealed because of the erosion of the cartilage. In the left lower image, you are seeing that around the knee joint there are some small bony appearing things. So those are what are loose bodies or joint mice. On the right lower side, you are seeing the gross images of those same things. Loose bodies are joint mice. These are basically the cartilage which has been peeled off from the articular surface, and they are wandering in the joint space. In this slide, in the image to your left, you are seeing an altered color of the bone, right? So it appears like ivory. That is what is eburnation of the bone. And on the right side, this is the cross section of the head of femur that you are seeing, and below the surface you are able to see some depression like thing which is pointed by the white arrow there. That is nothing but a subchondral cyst. The next topic for discussion is rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is a chronic inflammatory disorder. It is of autoimmune nature. Autoimmune in the sense the patient's own immune system is acting against the cells of his body. It principally affects the joints, however, it can involve many other organs, and it causes in the joint non-suppurative, proliferative and inflammatory synovitis. Coming to the pathogenesis, again here there are some genetic factors. One gene PTPN22, which usually prevents the activation of immune system, here is dysfunctioning. If it is dysfunctioning, it can lead to rheumatoid arthritis. Then environmental factors, certain viral infections like Epstein-Barr virus or smoking, what it does is it causes the citrullination of certain self antigens in the body, and then the immune system mounts an attack over these citrullinated antigens. The attack is carried on by both T cells and B cells. So let us see some of the factors which are responsible for the joint changes it brings about. Firstly, the Th1 cells will release interferon gamma, which leads to the activation of macrophages and synoviocytes. Then the Th17 cells will release interleukin 17. This interleukin 17 will call neutrophils and macrophages to the joints. Once the macrophages reach there, they'll secrete an important factor, which is tumor necrosis factor, and also interleukin 1. These will then release protease. So this protease will destroy the joint cartilage. Then there are also B cells which secrete various types of antibodies. These antibodies will form complexes with antigens, and it will deposit in various other locations to give rise so many manifestations of the disease. Clinically, rheumatoid arthritis is seen in a relatively younger age group as compared to osteoarthritis. However, older patients can also be affected. Here again there is a female predilection. Remember, for most autoimmune diseases, there is a female predilection. Common sites which are involved by rheumatoid arthritis include small joints of hands and feet. So very important. Most commonly metacarpophalangeal joints and proximal interphalangeal joints, and it is said to be symmetric. Other joints include elbow, knee, ankle and spine. The presentation typically is waxing and waning, and it will produce warm, swollen and painful joints, and extra articular manifestations are not uncommon. These images show the manifestations of rheumatoid arthritis in the hand. So important features are, first is radial deviation of wrist and ulnar deviation at metacarpophalangeal joints. Then you have more importantly boutonniere deformity or the button holders deformity. Other manifestation is the swan neck deformity. This slide shows some of the extra articular manifestations of rheumatoid arthritis. Some of them you can try to remember. In eye, it is important one is scleritis. Oral disease includes xerostomia, that is dryness of the mouth. In the lung, you can remember rheumatoid nodule, that is one thing. Another thing is interstitial fibrosis. In heart, pericarditis, as well as some valvular lesions. In kidneys, remember secondary amyloidosis. Then in skin, again there is rheumatoid nodules. In gastrointestinal tract, vasculitis. In blood, there is anemia of chronic disease and Felties syndrome. So Felties syndrome basically is the presence of neutropenia and splenomegaly along with rheumatoid arthritis. So its three features are there. Coming to the morphology of rheumatoid arthritis, grossly the synovium, because of inflammation, is edematous and thickened. It can also show some papillary like projections. Then pannus may be seen. So pannus, like we saw in gout, is basically a fibrovascular tissue that covers the articular surface like a cloth. So pannus literally means cloth. Microscopically, there is synovial hyperplasia, that is increase in thickness. There also is inflammation comprised of lymphocytes. In fact, the inflammation could be so intense that lymphoid follicles, like what you see in lymph nodes, can be formed. And also, there will be some inflammatory exudate. Apart from these, the blood supply to the close to the joint will be increased, and there will be excessive osteoclastic activity. Besides, there can also be pannus, which can cause ankylosis. This ankylosis initially will just be fibrous ankylosis. Later on, the fibrous pannus can get ossified to become a bony ankylosis. This is the histology image showing synovial hyperplasia. You can see multiple projections like islands like things, right? So those are the papillary like projections, and within them you are able to see numerous blue colored dots. Those are nothing but lymphocytes which have organized in a lymphoid follicle like manner. Next important morphology is that of rheumatoid nodules. It is seen in about 25% of the patients who are suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and commonly involves the skin, but it can also involve other organs like lungs, especially lungs. Grossly, they are firm, they are not painful, and they are round to oval in shape. And microscopically, it resembles tuberculous lesions. Namely, there is a necrosis in the center surrounded by histiocytes, which are nothing but activated macrophages. Then there are other cells like lymphocytes and plasma cells. Three arrows you are able to see here. The orange one is the necrosis, the red one denotes histiocytes, and the yellow ones are small round cells, blue colored cells, which are lymphocytes. Let us now talk about the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. So this is the criteria that is used. ACR, that is American College of Rheumatology, bar European League Against Rheumatism criteria of 2010. So in this criteria, the prerequisites are that at least one swollen joint should be there with no better explanation for the synovitis which is present, and at least 6 points, at least more than 6 points in the table are necessary for the diagnosis. So those points are symptom duration as reported by the patient, then joint distribution, serology comprising rheumatoid factor and anti-cyclic citrullinated peptide antibody. There are acute phase reactants like ESR and CRP. Points are given to various factors and the total should be more than 6. I'll just explain to you in brief what these two serological factors we saw in the diagnostic criteria are. The first is rheumatoid factor that we spoke about. It is present in about 80% of the patients of rheumatoid arthritis, and it is basically an antibody against an antibody. So it's IgM or IgA, which binds to the Fc portion of self immunoglobulin G. So Ig is immunoglobulin. Next is anti-citrullinated peptide antibody, also called anti-cyclic citrullinated peptide antibody. So initially in the pathogenesis we saw that some antigens were being citrullinated. So these are the antibodies which are produced against those antigens. Lastly, let us have a look at the differences in the morphologies of osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. In osteoarthritis, some of the important features are thinned out cartilage, exposure of the subchondral bone, subchondral sclerosis or eburnation. Then there are fissures in the subchondral bone leading to subchondral cysts, and then at the edge of the articular cartilage there is formation of osteophytes or bony spurs. Whereas in rheumatoid arthritis, if we see, it's an inflammatory condition basically. There is pannus, that is formation of a fibrovascular layer that covers the articular surface. There is eroding cartilage, fibrous ankylosis initially, which can later get ossified to form a bony type of an ankylosis. So that's it for today. Thank you.